Hello family, this is Miss Veronica. I am back to do some fun food science with you again today. Today we are going to be cooking, which you know is my favorite thing. And we're going to be making something that is usually a staple at breakfast time, though I am of the opinion that you can eat breakfast foods any time of the day. We are going to make pancakes together. Now, a lot of times when you think of pancakes, you might not think that they're the healthiest thing to eat for breakfast, especially if you're eating them from certain types of mixes or if you're eating them at a restaurant. Because a lot of times when we eat pancakes, there's a few different things that make them a little less healthy for us. One is the portion size. A lot of times when you go to a restaurant, you can end up with pancakes that are as big as your head. Nobody needs that much pancake in their life at one time. Also, another thing when it comes to pancakes is that a lot of sugar is often added to it. We've talked about sugar before. We know that too much of it is not good for us. It is also normally made with white flour. Now, white flour is not necessarily the worst thing that you can have, but what happens is that that white flour is processed, which means that a lot of the good things in it have been removed. And a lot of times the chemical is used to also bleach it as well, that makes it that nice pure white color. The only reason that's done is just to make it look nicer, and we don't need that done to our flour. So what we are going to do together today is we are going to make healthy pancakes. We're actually going to make healthy blueberry pancakes, and I'm going to teach you how to do that. If you were given one of our kits for this, then this is going to be pretty much exactly what you're going to do at home. If you are making this on your own, there is a recipe in the link below that is the larger recipe. This recipe is cut in half, so we would be able to give you the ingredients that you need. And these are pretty basic ingredients that you should be able to find at home or very easily and inexpensively in the grocery store. So we're going to start off by me showing you the ingredients that we're going to use today. We're going to talk a little bit about them, and then I'm just going to show you how to put them together. So let's start with the star of the show, which is our flour. Like I said, we do not want to use white flour. White flour goes through our bodies too fast. It doesn't really help us to stay full. It doesn't really have the nutritional value that we need. So we are going to use a whole wheat flour today. Again, very easy to find in the grocery store. You'll see it looks a little bit different than white flour. It has a lot of kind of brown speckles. It's kind of beige. That's what we want. We want all that good stuff. So what happens with whole wheat, with any kind of whole grains, is that they're leaving the entire grain together. They're not removing anything from the grain. In this case, they're not removing anything from the wheat berries that we use to grind up to make flour. And because of that, there's a lot of really good stuff in this whole wheat flour. We have fiber, which we have spoken about many times before. Fiber is incredibly important. You need it for your gut health, for your stomach health, and your colon. You need it to be able to do healthy poops. Remember, that is really important for your health, is to be able to poop well. And fiber is going to help you do that. It also helps to keep you fuller longer. So if you have whole grains in the morning, whole grain pancakes, whole grain oatmeal, things like that, then you won't find yourself getting really hungry before it's even lunchtime and needing to snack on a bunch of other things, because it helps us to stay full and keeps our energy up. So we are going to be using whole wheat flour. We're also going to be using baking powder. Baking powder and baking soda, though we don't use them interchangeably, are both called rising agents. Basically what that means is it's just something that we use in order to make something fluffy. So we use it in cakes, we use it in cookies, we use it in pancakes, and that's going to keep it from just being a flat, like gross pancake, is to have a little bit of baking powder in it. Now you can see I've got a ton of baking powder here. You really only need just a little bit, And for those of you who were given our kits, we already went and put it in with the flour for you, so we didn't have an extra step for you to do. So if you see a big white chunk in your whole wheat flour, that's the baking powder, because we're only using about half a teaspoon in here, very, very small amount. So there's really not a whole lot of nutritional value, but it's also not bad for you. It's just something that's going to help it when we're baking it in the skillet. So that's it for this part. Okay, we're also, the star of the show along with our flour is going to be our blueberries. Now, so much to love about blueberries, my friends. Blueberries are plump and juicy. When you have them fresh is the best way to eat them. They're also super, super delicious and a great snack, but they're also one of the best things that you can eat. They are so good for you. Now, blueberries have a lot of different vitamins in them. They do have a lot of vitamin C. Remember that it helps with your immune system. It can keep you from getting sick. They also have a lot of vitamin K in them. You might not hear about that one a lot, but vitamin K is very important. It helps for your wounds to heal. So if you've ever gotten a cut that seems like it's taking a really long time to heal, or a bruise that's just not going away, you may be a little bit low in vitamin K, because vitamin K helps those things to heal a little faster. There's also a lot of fiber in blueberries. We just talked about fiber and how important that is. So you know that these are super good for you. Now, another fun word, we've used it before, and I'm going to use it again. Again, it's a very big sciencey word. Blueberries have a ton of antioxidants in them. And if you'll remember, antioxidants can help to keep you from getting some pretty gnarly diseases. So we're talking about things like heart disease, cancer, diabetes, things like that. If you eat foods that are higher in antioxidants, that lowers your risk of getting those diseases. So blueberries have pretty much the highest antioxidant level that you can get in fruit. And so that is another reason why they're incredibly, incredibly good for you. Now today, what we're going to be doing, and this is mostly because it would have been very difficult for us to get fresh blueberries to those of you who are using our kits, you're going to use some dried blueberries. So basically this just means that the water was kind of sucked out of them. It's a lot like a raisin. It's pretty much the same thing. And so they don't go bad very quickly. These are also good for you, especially if there is no added sugar, which there is not with these. And fun fact, things that are dried like this, a lot of times you can rehydrate them. So basically, if you wanted these to kind of turn back into plumper blueberries like this, you would put them in some very hot water, some boiling water, and it usually takes several minutes to about an hour, but they end up absorbing that water and plumping back up. So that's just kind of some fun science for you. You do not need to do that, but if you want to try it, have an adult help you to boil some water to put on top of them. Not in this cup, it will melt, and put them in a bowl, and you can see if you can get them to plump up again. But you can also just eat them just like this. So those are going to go into our blueberries as, our pancakes as well. Now, we're also going to have a half a cup of milk. We did not give that to you in your kit. Just use any milk that you have in your house. I'm going to be using oat milk because I don't like to eat a lot of dairy, but if you have regular milk, almond milk, anything like that is going to be just fine. So it's going to be another one of our ingredients. It's going to be kind of our wet ingredients to mix everything together. We're also going to use some honey. Those of you who got the kits are going to get these cute little packets of honey, and we're going to use about half a tablespoon of honey. And this is just going to sweeten our pancakes a little bit. We've talked about sugar before, how too much sugar is not good for you. It's just not good for your body, your weight, your heart, any of that good stuff. So we're going to use something that's a little bit more natural. It is still sugar, but honey has other nutritional benefits as well. And we're just going to use a little bit to give some good sweetness to our pancakes. So we're going to use a couple of these as well. And then this is kind of fun. So in a normal pancake recipe, and you'll see it listed in the recipe in the link below, we would normally use an egg. An egg acts as a binder. And what that means is that that egg is going to hold together the batter so that it doesn't become just kind of a mess when you try and stir it together or put it in the pan. There's also a lot of protein in eggs. Eggs can be very good for you. However, some of us are allergic to eggs. Some of us may not have eggs. And in this case, we need to use the amount of half of an egg in our recipe because I cut the recipe in half. Now, it's very difficult to measure out half of an egg. You know, when you crack an egg, it comes out. It's very hard to measure out a half of one. So what we're going to do is something kind of fun. Now, we have used flax seed before. You guys remember we used it in our seed balls. And that is the seed from the flax. Remember, is usually just a tiny, tiny little seed. And where our body can only use it when it's been ground up. And when it's ground up, it's almost like a little powder. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. Okay, almost looks like wheat a little bit. Now, a very cool thing about flax is if you pour some water on it and leave it for a few minutes, it becomes almost like a gel. That has to do with just the way that the seed is formed. It kind of forms a gel whenever it is wet for a while. That's going to be our binder today. I've measured out enough to make it about the equivalent of half of an egg. You can also make a whole egg substitute with it as well. That will also be in the recipe in the link if you ever want to try that. And so if you are allergic to eggs, if you don't like eggs, if you know, you need an emergency substitute and you have some flax around, I just kind of keep a bag of it in the fridge, it's not that expensive, then you can very easily substitute your eggs with flaxseed and water. So I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to do that in a couple minutes, and that is going to be the half of an egg in our recipe. It's pretty exciting. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the most part. Pancakes are not very complicated, just flour, some baking powder. I'm probably going to put in a pinch of salt just to kind of help with the flavor a little bit. Something to sweeten it. Some people use sugar, some people use a little bit of maple syrup. We're going to use our honey, and then flax instead of our egg, and that's pretty much it. So in just a second here, I'm going to show you how to put all of this together. Okay, let's get started. So what I'm going to do first, because it takes a minute to start that gelling process, so I'm going to take my flax seed and I'm going to pour it into about a tablespoonful of water. There's not much water needed in this. So in goes my flax seed. And I'm just going to take this fork. I'm going to use a fork a lot today. I like to kind of whisk when I'm making pancakes. You can use an actual whisk if you want to, but I'm just going to use this fork because it's easy. I'll make sure that this is nice and mixed up. And I'm just going to put it to the side for a couple minutes. Okay. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to start adding our dry ingredients. Whenever you're kind of baking, I know technically this is cooking because we're not putting it in the oven, but whenever you're making something that's going to be kind of like a cake or cookie, something baked like that, you want to add the dry ingredients first, and then the wet ingredients separate, and then you pour the wet into the dry. So I have a little bowl here. If you're making a bigger amount, you're going to need a bigger bowl, but today will be fine. So I have here a half of a cup of whole wheat flour, and then we have a half of a teaspoon of baking powder already in it. So I'm going to pour that into my bowl, and I just want to make sure that the flour and the baking powder are all nice and mixed. So I'm just going to take my fork, mix that up a little bit. At this point, since it is time for my dry ingredients, I am just going to add a little pinch of salt. This is optional. You do not need to do this, but I'm going to. You do not need a lot. Remember, this is half of a pancake recipe, so I'm just going to put in a little tiny pinch. All right. I'll mix that up a little bit. Okay, now I want to have my wet ingredients. Remember, I told you I was going to be using some oat milk today. And I'm only going to need about 1/4 of a cup of oat milk. So it's only, if you take a cup and you put it in half, that's 1/2 a cup. If you cut that in half, that's 1/4 of a cup, and that's what we're going to be using today. So fill this up about halfway. Here. Now, I already have my flax the way I want it. You'll start to see that it starts to kind of gel up a little bit. Even if it doesn't look like much, it's totally fine the way it is. It's gonna work just like we need it to as a binder. And I'm just gonna go ahead and pour my milk in here so my wet and dry are mixed separately. You can use another bowl. I just happen to know it fit in this cup, so I'm not gonna waste another bowl I have to wash. Okay. And then the wet goes into the dry. And you can start mixing it a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is add our honey. Now the ingredients listed in the link below tell you exactly how much honey to use if you're using it from a squeeze bottle or if you're scooping it out. For this, we're just going to go ahead and use both of these little guys here. But if you're doing a full recipe, then you're going to use about a tablespoon or 2 of honey. It depends on how sweet you like it. Some people don't like really sweet honey. Excuse me, really sweet pancakes. I can't look at things written down and talk about other things because I'll end up saying the wrong word. And I was looking at how it says honey. Okay. Ooh, that's lovely. Honey's so delicious. If you ever get a chance to go to where they have bees that make honey, it's called an apiary, and it's a very cool experience. You get to see what the bees are all about and what they're doing, and sometimes have some fresh honeycomb. So right now I just have this little bit of batter, and I'm going to go ahead and mix it up with my fork. One thing I did forget to mention, I apologize, at the beginning when we were talking about the ingredients, is that we're also going to use just a little bit of oil. I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of oil in my half a recipe. So if you're doing this with your kit, we did not include the oil, but you can use any oil that you have at home. I'm using avocado, but you can also use olive oil or anything else that you would normally use for cooking or baking that you might have in your house. Okay. And you're going to want your batter to be a little bit on the thick side. You don't want it to be very runny. If you find that it looks a little bit too thick, you can just add another splash of milk. Mine's probably fine, but I wanted to show you anyway. Just a splash, just a sploosh. Now this is where you can also start adding in other flavors if you want to. Also, you can add some vanilla if you want to. Vanilla is great added to pancakes. All you'd want to do is just add just a little kind of splash. If I had my vanilla out for you, I would show you, but it's not a big deal. Now I'm going to show you what my batter looks like and hope that you can see it well. It might not focus correctly. Remember, I don't have a cameraman. I am my own cameraman. But basically, this is what your batter is going to look like. It should be almost like a paste, almost look like oatmeal a little bit. This is the perfect consistency for making pancakes. Now there's 2 ways that you can do the blueberries. You can either go ahead and throw them in now and just mix it up, or if you want to control how many you get in each pancake, then you can just, once you pour the batter into the pan, you can just put a few on top as it's cooking. I'm going to go ahead and probably just throw them on in. So these are our dried blueberries. Okay, there's a few here. Again, you can also use regular fresh blueberries if you have them. And then our next step is just to go on over to the pan and I'll show you how to cook these. It's very, very easy, but I do want you to remember that I do not want you to do this without an adult. Anytime you're using a heat source, so if you're using an oven, stove, anything like that, I want you to have an adult to help you. These are very easy. Eventually, I'm sure you'll be able to do them completely by yourself, but I would like you to have some supervision when you're using this stove. So let's head on over to my stove and we'll get going cooking these pancakes. Okay, friends, it's cooking time. So what I have done, what we want to do is have about a medium-sized pan. It doesn't have to be huge, but you don't want it too small because you want to be able to easily flip your pancakes. I have already turned it on to about a medium heat. You want to get your pan hot before you get started because that's going to be the easiest way to cook them without them taking forever or without them burning, because we need to be able to make sure that the inside is cooked as well as the outside, or else you get those gooiness in the middle when they're not cooked. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with another teaspoon of our avocado oil or your olive oil or whatever it is that you have. And this is going to hopefully keep our pancakes from sticking. You can always use a little bit more as you go. Okay, roll that around a little bit. Now I am just going to use a spoon about this size to scoop my batter. If you're making big pancakes, or if you have a lot of them, you can use a ladle. That's really helpful sometimes. But I only have about this much batter, so we're only going to make a couple of pancakes, and I'm not going to make them super large. But I am going to take the batter, just kind of plop it right in the middle. You hear that sizzle, you know that your pan is hot. Okay, scoop a little on. Make sure it's kind of in that nice flat round shape that we're looking for with pancakes. And we're going to let it cook for a minute. Now what's going to happen as it's getting ready to be time to flip it is you're going to see bubbles start to pop on the top of your pancake. Now you see my batter's a little thick. This is how I like it. You can thin it out a little bit more with milk while it's in the bowl if you like, but this is a good consistency. It kind of reminds me of paste a little bit, but that's how I like to have them. And you can see the bubbles are already starting to come out the top. This may even be a little hot. I may want to turn it down just a little bit because I want to make sure it's going to cook all the way through and not burn on the outsides. So once it starts to look a little bit less glossy around the edges, you have a lot of bubbles coming out the top, we know that we're ready to flip it. So we'll give it just a few seconds to do that, and then I'll show you how to flip. Okay, so I just plopped forward a little bit in time so you didn't have to sit there and watch my pancake cook in silence, but I did check underneath, which is why it looks a little wonky now. You can do that, just kind of pick it up a little bit and check to see if it is golden on the bottom. Then you just slide your spatula underneath. Make sure you go all the way underneath. Oh, losing a blueberry. And then you're just going to flip it over, and you can do that kind of quickly so that you don't lose any batter. See, the bottom is kind of a nice golden brown. Sorry, it's not the prettiest pancake in the world because when I checked underneath it started falling apart a little bit, but that's completely okay. It doesn't matter. As long as it's kind of stuck together in a pancake shape, it's not a problem. You can make those, nice pretty ones that you see in the restaurants. That's totally fine. You need a thinner batter for that most likely, but all you're wanting is for it to be kind of all together like this in like a patty form, and you want both sides to be a nice golden brown and the inside to be cooked through. And so that's what we've done here. And this side's a little bit harder to tell if it's done or not because you're not going to get the bubbles. So what you're going to do is just kind of let it cook for a minute, and every now and again you're just going to want to look underneath and see how it's doing. Mine is still a little bit too white underneath. I want it to be this nice golden brown color. So we're going to give it another minute. Okay, took a peek underneath. Looks like I'm done on the other side as well. They're both golden brown. So now it's time to put my pancake on a plate. You can make as many pancakes as you have batter for. The amount that we gave you is probably going to be about 2 pancakes, but if you make a larger batch, you're going to get at least 4 out of it. So just keep making them until you run out of batter. Let's start to plate this. Okay, it's time for the fun part. It's time to try our pancake. So I have mine here. I'm going to take a quick bite. We'll talk about toppings in just a second. I'm just going to go with my normal pancake here. Sorry, it takes a moment to chew, but I'm very happy with it. Tastes like a pancake. That's awesome. So let's talk add-ins and toppings. And pardon me for still having some pancake in my mouth. But this is important because this can make or break your pancake. So most people will put maybe butter and syrup on top of their pancakes. And while that's nice for a treat, we do want to remember that too much butter has a lot of what we call saturated fats. Now there's good healthy fats like in avocado, in our flax seed, things like that are good for us. But there's also something called saturated fat, which can be a little bit worse for our body, for our heart, things like that. So we don't want to eat a whole lot of it. And maple syrup is literally just sugar. It's a more natural sugar, but it is still just kind of pure sugar that also has a maple flavor to it as well. So again, for a treat, having a little bit is not a big deal. If you're going to eat pancakes often though, I would highly suggest that you branch out and start trying some different things on top of your pancakes. One big thing, and I believe we talked about it a little bit in the recipe in the link, is yogurt. Yogurt makes a really great topping. It gives you kind of that that lightness, a little bit of added sweetness if it has any kind of sugar in it, but it really helps your pancake to go down easy, and it tastes really good, and it adds some protein and some probiotics, which are really good for your stomach health. You can even mix some extra berries in with your yogurt. My favorite is to use peanut butter. Sometimes I'll use jam as well, but I love peanut butter on top of my pancakes. That adds some protein. And again, remember, protein is the building blocks for your whole body, so it's important that we have enough protein. And also just has a really, really good flavor, and any kind of nuts are going to give you that good, healthy fat that we like. You can also use honey on top, pretty much anything that's just going to add a little bit of flavor to it, but you can even have them plain. That's not a big deal either. Oh, applesauce, that's a good one too. Add-ins, you can put all kinds of different things in or on your pancake. Fruit is always a good one. So again, fresh or dried fruit, blueberries, strawberries, bananas, apples. Apple cinnamon is one of my family's favorite types of pancakes. You can add in all kinds of different seasonings like cinnamon or ginger, nutmeg, things like that. You can also add in other healthy nuts like some walnuts, almonds, things like that. Seeds if you want a little bit of a crunch. I've seen people put pumpkin seeds on top of their pancakes. There are all different types of things that you can do. You can make them different for the whole family, and it just kind of makes it yours, makes it something that you know you enjoy, and also just adds some other healthy, fun ingredients to what you're eating. A few chocolate chips now and then isn't a bad thing to add either, especially if you're having it for a snack or something like that. So there's a lot that can be done with pancakes. I hope that you will kind of branch out and try new things, and just remember to make things your own. Now just a reminder why we did this today is because we like to take things that we love to eat and just make them a little bit healthier for our bodies. And today we did that by using the whole grain, whole wheat flour. Remember, whole grain means that they have not removed anything from the grain. It's just ground up into a powder to make it a flour, so that we are not removing any of that fiber or any of the heart healthy benefits that are in our whole wheat flour. It's not been bleached to make it a pretty white color. We don't need that. Remember, we had our blueberries today because blueberries are full of vitamin C, vitamin K. They also have a lot of fiber to help with our gut health and to keep everything moving. And they have those antioxidants so that we can try and prevent any kind of diseases in our body. So we use some healthy ingredients to make something that's a fun treat into something you can eat more often. It's still incredibly delicious. It's just better for you. You can do that with all kinds of recipes. You can do it with cookies. You can do it with cakes. You can do it with all kinds of stuff. So be adventurous in the kitchen. Have a good time. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. Again, the link for the full recipe is below, so you can make it anytime. Please just remember to have a grown-up help you when you are using the stove. So have a wonderful day. I hope you are all safe and healthy, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.